Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories. My name is Rob and I will be your host for this evening. If you're new to this channel, every single Friday I share a chapter from one of my original stories here with you guys. If you have been subscribed to the channel, then you know usually my stories are 4 chapters long, meaning that each month we read through one chapter every single week, and then at the first Friday of every month we start a brand new story. However, this story is different. The story that we have been covering is called Astral. It follows Callum, who lives in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, and he's had this reoccurring dream for about 20 years. And he's just now starting to learn that this dream has certain abilities that he didn't know existed before just a couple days ago. And now these dreams have opened up a whole new realm to a world of possibilities for Callum. If you haven't checked out chapters 1, 2, or 3 so far, I would suggest going back and doing that. But as I stated, chapter 4 is usually where we end off a story, but this is actually just going to be the halfway point because Astral will be an 8-chapter series. Although this isn't the finale, this is a very crucial chapter. We've heard about it for the last couple of chapters, this thing called the Society. We learned a lot about it last week, but this week we finally get to experience it and see what it is all about, along with all of the members. Like I said, if you haven't checked out chapters 1, 2, and 3, do so before listening to this story. But if you are caught up, then let's waste no more time. This is chapter 4 of Astral.
Reese stretched his arms over his head, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "All right, Callum, I've got a question for you. You ready to see something that'll really blow your mind?" Callum blinked. "You mean more than this?" He gestured around at the rooftop and then to the vast city skyline. "I thought flying and turning into liquid were pretty hard to top." "Oh, trust me," Reese said, cracking his knuckles. "What you've seen so far, that's just the shallow end of the pool. There's a lot more out there. The question is, do you want to come with me to see it?" "See what?" Callum asked, his curiosity sparking to life again. "The Society's meeting place. We call it the Sanctum of Astralis." Callum couldn't help but feel the weight of those words settle over him. The name sounded ancient, mysterious, like it belonged in a book about secret orders and hidden worlds. "The Sanctum," Callum repeated slowly, tasting the word. "Where is it?" Reese shrugged. "Not here, that's for sure. You're gonna have to fly for this one. Think you're up for it?" Callum didn't hesitate. "Lead the way." Reese's grin widened. "Attaboy. All right, stick close to me and try not to get distracted. It's a long way to go, and I'd rather not have to fish you out of a cornfield somewhere in Kansas." Callum raised an eyebrow. "Kansas?" Reese ignored him and shot into the air without warning. Callum, startled but determined, bent his knees and pushed off, following Reese into the night sky. The wind whipped past him, cool and exhilarating, as Nashville quickly fell away beneath them. Callum struggled to keep up at first, but his confidence grew with every second. The city lights shrank into glowing dots, and before long, they were soaring high above the clouds. "Where are we going?" Callum called out, his voice carried away by the wind. "Chicago," Reese shouted back. "You'll see why soon enough." The flight was like nothing Callum had ever experienced. The world below was a blur. Towns, forests, and rivers zipped past, glowing faintly under the moonlight. The stars above felt impossibly close, as if he could reach out and grab them. The sheer scale of the world took his breath away. After what felt like only minutes, the glow of a new city appeared on the horizon. Skyscrapers stretched high into the air, their lights reflected in the shimmering waters of Lake Michigan. Chicago lay before them, alive and vibrant even in the dead of night. "Almost there," Reese called out, descending sharply toward the heart of the city. Callum followed, his excitement mounting as they soared over towering buildings and empty streets. They landed in an alleyway just outside of downtown, where the sounds of the city seemed strangely muffled. Callum looked around, confused. "This is it?" "Patience," Reese said, walking forward. He led Callum to an unmarked iron door set into the side of an old stone building. Vines and moss crawled up the walls, as if the structure had been here for centuries, unnoticed and forgotten. Rhys knocked 3 times, sharp and deliberate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep rumble, the door slid inward, revealing a narrow stone corridor bathed in flickering torchlight. "Welcome to the sanctum of Astralis," Rhys said, stepping aside with a flourish. Callum hesitated, his heart racing, before following Rhys into the corridor. The door closed behind them with a heavy thud, cutting off the outside world. The air inside was cooler, filled with the faint smell of earth and stone. The corridor opened into a massive underground chamber, and Callum stopped short, his mouth falling open in awe. The sanctum was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, lit by glowing orbs suspended in midair, casting a soft, silvery light across the cavern. Ancient stone pillars lined the walls, carved with intricate symbols that pulsed faintly, as if alive. The center of the chamber featured a large, circular table made of polished obsidian, its surface reflecting the light like black glass. Around it, figures moved, their voices a low murmur of conversation. Callum could feel the weight of something powerful in the air, like the room itself was watching him. "Come on," Rhys said, nudging him forward. "Time to meet the others." As they approached the table, 3 figures stood waiting. Callum's breath caught in his chest as he took them in, each one commanding attention in their own way. Eldrin Kalis stood at the center, leaning on a gnarled wooden staff that seemed as ancient as the room itself. His long silver hair flowed past his shoulders, and his beard was just as white, neatly trimmed. Deep wrinkles lined his face, but his eyes, his piercing, pale blue eyes, were sharp and clear, brimming with wisdom and authority. He wore a flowing gray robe adorned with swirling golden patterns that seemed to shimmer in the torchlight. "Rhys," Eldrin said, his voice deep and calm, like rolling thunder. "You've brought someone new." "Yes, sir," Rhys replied, standing a little straighter. "This is Callum. He's different." Eldrin's gaze turned to Callum, pinning him in place. For a moment, it felt as though the old man could see straight into his soul. "We shall see." To Eldrin's left stood Talon Marrow, a tall, gaunt man with sharp, angular features and jet-black hair slicked back. His dark eyes seemed to burn with an intensity that made Callum uneasy, and the faintest of smirks curled his lips. He wore a fitted black coat that swept the floor, its high collar adding to his menacing appearance. Talon tilted his head slightly as he studied Callum. "This is the one you've been talking about?" he asked Rhys, his voice smooth but edged with skepticism. "Yeah," Rhys said, unbothered. "See for yourself." Talon's smirk widened ever so slightly. "Interesting." And then there was Vexa Druin. Callum's heart skipped a beat when he saw her. She stood to Eldrin's right, her presence a striking contrast to Talon's cold demeanor. Vexa was beautiful, beyond beautiful, really. Her hair fell in waves of midnight black, framing her sharp yet delicate features. Her eyes, an intense shade of emerald green, seemed to glow faintly as she regarded Callum with quiet curiosity. She wore a deep blue tunic cinched at the waist, paired with sleek black pants and knee-high boots that gave her an air of both elegance and strength. "Another newcomer?" she said, her voice soft but confident. There was something musical about it, something that made Callum forget how to breathe for a second. Rhys grinned and nudged Callum. "Pick your jaw up, man. She's way out of your league." Callum snapped out of it, his cheeks burning. Vexa smiled faintly, as though she'd seen this reaction 1,000 times before. "Welcome, Callum," she said, her eyes lingering on him for a moment before shifting back to Eldrin. Eldrin tapped his staff against the floor, the sound echoing throughout the chamber. There is much to discuss. Callum swallowed hard, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze on him. Whatever he had stumbled into, it was bigger than he'd imagined, and it was only just beginning. Eldrin's staff tapped against the floor once more, the soft thud resonating through the sanctum. The rest of our members will be arriving shortly. Tonight we'll see what you're capable of, Callum. Callum shifted nervously, stealing a glance at Reese, who gave him a reassuring nod. You'll be fine, Reese whispered, his tone light. Probably. A low rumble echoed through the chamber as another door swung open, and more members of the society entered, their figures emerging from the shadows one by one. There were 8 of them in total, an eclectic mix of men and women, each giving off an air of quiet power and confidence. Reese rattled off their names quickly as they settled around the room. That's Freya, Oren, Darius, Xana, Luke, and Mira, Holt, and Quinn, he muttered. Don't worry about memorizing them yet. They'll all know who you are soon enough. The other members regarded Callum with curiosity, some whispering to one another, while others gave approving nods or faint smiles. It was clear he was the center of attention, and he could feel the weight of their expectations pressing on him. Talon's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. All right, enough standing around. If the kid's going to be one of us, let's see if he can actually keep up. There was a dark gleam in Talon's eyes as he stepped forward, his black coat sweeping behind him like a shadow. Callum stiffened as Talon looked him over, his expression a mix of disdain and amusement. You'll be training with me tonight, Talon said, his lips curling into a smirk. Let's see what you've got. Eldrin gave a small nod of approval, his gaze lingering on Callum. Very well. Talon, take him through the basics. Everyone else, observe. The training began with simple exercises, or at least they seemed simple at first. Talon led Callum into the center of the chamber, where an open space had been cleared. The other members formed a loose circle around them, watching intently. First rule of astral projection, Talon said coldly. Control. Without it, your gift is nothing but chaos. He snapped his fingers and the air shimmered. Suddenly, glowing orbs appeared around Callum, small, darting spheres of light that zipped unpredictably in every direction. Catch one, Talon commanded, his voice dripping with condescension. Shouldn't be too hard for someone like you. Callum stared at the orbs, their erratic movements dizzying. He reached out, but the lights darted away from his hand just before he could grasp them. Talon smirked, crossing his arms as if to say, I told you so. Focus, Callum muttered to himself. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he stopped reaching and moved, with intention, not hesitation. His hand shot forward, snatching an orb out of the air. It pulsed softly in his palm, and the others in the room let out murmurs of surprise. Beginner's luck, Talon growled. Let's make this harder. He waved his hand and the orbs multiplied, dozens of them now weaving through the air like fireflies on fast forward. Callum's eyes narrowed. Talon clearly wanted him to fail, but something inside him wouldn't let that happen. Instead of chasing the lights, Callum planted his feet and raised his hands. He felt the space around him as though he were part of the dream itself. The lights responded, slowing as if drawn to him. With a final sweeping motion, he clapped his hands together, and the orbs collapsed into a single glowing light floating gently above his palm. The room was silent for a beat. Whoa, Reese whispered. Even Talon looked taken aback, though he quickly scowled and turned away. Lucky again, he muttered. The training continued, each challenge more difficult than the last. Talon conjured obstacles, created illusions, and threw everything he could at Callum to throw him off balance. At one point, a wall of fire appeared between Callum and the others, its heat so intense he thought it might burn him. Walk through it, Talon ordered, his voice cold and unforgiving. Callum hesitated, but only for a moment. It's not real, he whispered to himself, forcing his feet to move forward. Step by step, he pushed through the flames, ignoring the heat that licked at his skin. When he emerged on the other side, unscathed, the other members erupted into applause. "That's impossible," Talon said under his breath, his hands curling into fists. Vexa's emerald eyes lingered on Callum with admiration. She clapped gently, a faint smile playing on her lips. When Callum caught her gaze, his heart skipped a beat. She looked at him like he was something extraordinary, and for the first time in a long time, Callum felt it. By the end of the training, Callum was exhausted but triumphant. He'd surpassed every challenge Talon threw at him, though the dark-haired man's irritation was palpable. Eldrin approached him, his expression calm but approving. "You did well tonight, Callum. Better than I expected." "Thanks," Callum replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't know how I'm doing this, it just happens." Eldrin studied him for a moment before speaking again. "You have a rare gift, Callum. Most of us struggle for years to learn what you've accomplished tonight. It's not just skill, it's instinct. You're special." Callum swallowed, unsure how to respond. "Special?" "Yes," Eldrin said, his voice kind but firm. "I want you to come back tomorrow night, alone. There are fundamentals we didn't cover tonight, things you need to learn if you're going to fully understand your gift." Callum nodded, a strange warmth spreading through his chest. "I'll be here." Eldrin smiled faintly and placed a hand on Callum's shoulder. "Rest well tonight. You've earned it." As the night began to fade and Callum waited for the familiar pull of his alarm clock, he stood near the edge of the rooftop, staring out over the sleeping city. Reese had already left, and the other members were dispersing, but Callum lingered, soaking it all in. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw a figure. Talon stood near the entrance to the sanctum, his dark coat fluttering faintly in the wind. He wasn't smiling. Instead, his face was twisted into something darker, something malicious. His black eyes locked onto Callum, and for a moment, the world felt colder. Callum shivered. He couldn't prove anything, but he felt it. Talon was up to no good. The pull of his alarm hit him then, tugging at his consciousness like a hook. Callum's vision blurred, the rooftop melting away as reality crept back in. The last thing he saw was Talon's shadowed face, watching him with quiet hatred.
So that is going to do it for today. I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you did, be sure to click that like button and hit that subscribe button. As I stated in the intro of the video, this is usually where we say goodbye to the story, but Astral is an 8-chapter series, meaning that we are only halfway through this story. So you definitely want to stay tuned and subscribe and hit that bell notification to make sure that you don't miss another video. Also, if you're interested, my new book, A Perfect Journey Through Villainous Eyes, is available right now on Amazon. You can purchase a copy. It includes my story Astral, so if you can't wait any longer and you need to know exactly how the story ends, then feel free to pick up a copy today. It also includes 5 other stories, one that you can't hear anywhere else. It is a book exclusive. Also, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of August, so if you could go down and click that subscribe button, it would mean a lot to me and definitely help me out in this journey. I think we can definitely get there, but I definitely need your guys' help. But that will do it for today. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for spending a little bit of your evening here with me.